Good evening. My name is Patricia Newton, and I'd just like to share a few words with you. By now, I am so sure that you've heard this story about a man who was on the top of his roof and who was drowning. In a desperate prayer, he asked God, "Please save me." And in a few minutes, a rowboat came past, and the person inside said, "Hop on in. We're going to safety. We can save you." And the man waved him off and said, "No, I'm waiting on God to help me." So the rowboat took off, went away. In another few minutes, a helicopter came overhead. They let down a line and they said to the man, "Come on, grab the line. We can pull you up. We can save you." And again, the man said, "No, I'm waiting on God to save me." And then a motorboat came past a few minutes later. And the person piloting the motorboat said, "Come on, hop in. We can save you." And the man said, "No, I'm waiting on God to save me." Well, the water came up and the man drowned. When he got to heaven, he said, "God, why didn't you save me? I asked you to save me." And God said, "I tried 3 times. I sent a rowboat. I sent a helicopter. I sent a motorboat. And you wouldn't listen. You didn't get in." You may be asking, what does this have to do with what's going on now in the world and our situation around the country here in the United States? God, we're drowning in hate. Why are you not listening? That may be a question you've been asking this weekend. I've been asking God. We've been praying. Why is this situation still the same way? Well, this afternoon, when I was cooking in my little kitchen here in Philadelphia, it was a voice said to me, and I'm thinking it might have been the voice of God that said, "I sent many people to save you, but they didn't want to listen. I sent Ida B. Wells to champion the cause against lynching, but they didn't want to listen. She's a woman. She's not qualified to tell us what to do, but they didn't want to listen. I sent Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to speak out against the hate and racism, but they didn't want to listen. They said he was too uppity, didn't know his place, and that it was too soon. They poked at his personal life to try and discredit him, but they didn't want to listen. I sent Tom Skinner to speak out against injustice. They said he was too radical, but they didn't want to listen. I even sent a white man, Dr. Howard Hendricks, to speak out about the injustice against Black folk, but he was too urban, wants us to move too fast, but they didn't want to listen. I sent John Perkins from Mendenhall, Mississippi to speak out. Too country, backwoodsy, but they didn't want to listen. I sent President Jimmy Carter, who left his church because they wouldn't accept Black folks. He's too country and naive about how Washington works. He's too nice. But they didn't want to listen. I sent Dr. Howard Thurman and Dr. James Cone. They were too intellectual, too Black focused, but they didn't want to listen. I sent Congresswoman Maxine Waters to warn you. She's only saying things because she's a Democrat, but they didn't want to listen. I sent Dr. Michael Eric Dyson and his book, Tears We Cannot Stop. He's too urban, provocative, uses big words, and is too earthy. But they didn't want to listen. Like the biblical righteous Abel in Genesis, Viola Liuzzo's, Jonathan Daniels, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman's, and Michael Schwimmer's Four Little Black Girls, and Emmett Till's blood speaks from the ground. But they didn't want to listen. I sent President Barack Obama, a decent, scandal free, educated family man. His politics didn't resonate on various levels and issues, but he was dignified, educated, and had the welfare of the country at heart. But they didn't want to listen. Now, I allow you to have a man who some people wanted, who is unlike any of his predecessors. Personally, I do not have to enumerate his traits. Are you listening now? Our only hope is that God will have mercy on us for ignoring all of the prophetic voices who have come before. As I heard a prophetic voice say this morning, we should not be asking God, "Where are you?" The question should be, "Where am I?" Each one of us must listen. I must listen to do what God says for me to do. Now, be safe. Be listening to what God says for you to do. Good evening.